Hello and welcome to our next video. In this lesson, we're going to take the time to set up our AppId and AppSecret so that they will pull from the web config whether or not we're in test or production, and that way we won't have to worry about changing this manually every time we want to release. So what we need to be doing is first start in our startup.auth.cs, and we're going to use some application keys from the web config. So here we have this section called App Settings, and App Settings allows us to create key value pairs that we can store a key to pull from and the value we want it to return. So what I'm going to do is add two keys. My first key is going to be AppId, and we'll set the value here in a second. And my second one is going to be AppSecret. See where I'm going with this? So this will allow us to store a configured value for these settings. So we need to go back to our startup auth and grab the AppId, and I'm actually just going to delete it out of there because we're not going to need it there anymore. So I Control X'd, so I could easily just Control V here. And I'm going to do the same thing on the AppSecret. Control X, Control V. Now that allows me to wire up the key for AppId and AppSecret, and I need to be able to pull them here. So rather than have this quote, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say configuration manager .app settings. And then in here I'm going to type AppId. Now this has to be case sensitive and it has to match exactly what I put in the web config. So I want to make sure that if I don't have a capital D there, I don't have a capital D there. And it has a red squiggly line under that says configuration manager does not exist in the current context. That's telling us it won't compile as it is right now, but you see that with the Visual Studio tools, if we hit Control plus period, it'll give us some options. So we're going to add a using directive at the top called using system configuration. So I'm going to click that, and what that did was put system configuration here, which brought in the libraries for system configuration, which includes the configuration manager. And that allowed me to hit the app settings key to pull AppId, which will then bring that value that's stored right here and put that into my code as needed. So I'm going to replace this one with AppSecret. So just to make sure I don't have a typo, I'm going to go ahead and copy that AppSecret key, because again, if it's not the same exactly, it won't work. Now, I've wired up my application ID and AppSecret to come from web config. I'm going to run it to make sure it still works on my local version before I wire up my production release web config to use the new values for the original application that we had created on Facebook way back at the beginning of this section. All right, so let's go ahead and attempt to log in, and hopefully it will know to pull our AppId and AppSecret for Facebook login from that config file, and it worked. If it didn't work, we probably wouldn't have gotten to this point. We wouldn't have been able to log in because it is going out and hitting Facebook and making sure that my token authenticates. And so had I not had that set up, it wouldn't have worked. So that proves to me that my new setting configuration, app settings ID, and secret are being pulled. So what I want to do now is just finish wiring up the production version. So again, I'm going to go into my web config here, and I'm going to grab these two app settings, these app IDs and AppSecret. And actually, just in case, I'm going to bring this all over. I'm not sure that web release even has an app settings in it yet. It doesn't. So I'm going to put that right here. And I'm going to remove the ones that I'm going to leave the same across the version. So we'll just delete these. And here I'm going to do a transform again, where I'm going to do XDT, and let's put a space there, XDT transform, and it's going to be replace. And we're going to just copy that and put that in front of the other one as well. So this is going to replace the keys for AppId and AppSecret with my production versions, which I want to get again out of here. So we'll just Control X, paste this here, Control X, paste this here. So now our production config, our release config, is set up to go against the Facebook application that's our real one. Our test one when we're running locally, should run against the local test application, and both of them should be wired up correctly on their databases as well, as we've seen in previous videos. So, one last thing to do. When we set up our test application on Facebook, I forgot to actually go back to the original Contact Manager and change the release URL on my settings here. So I need to go into my settings for Contact Manager, and this site URL is no longer going to be what it is. So what I need to do is go out to App Harbor and get my site URL. And so let's just do that here. Again, you should be becoming quite familiar with this process. Go out, log into App Harbor, get your particular website up. Now, an easy way to get your web URL is just go here, go to your application, run it. And of course, if it hasn't run in 20 minutes, it does have to spin up. That's one of the disadvantages of working on App Harbor versus maybe a dedicated server. However, if you were to be purchasing, extra CPUs and uptime for a full production release, you wouldn't have to wait this spin up time. But the spin up time is only going to happen if it hasn't been run in the last 20 minutes. But there we see my application contactweb.appharb or apphb.com. What I'm going to do is drop that site URL right here and save the changes. So that should set us up to use the production version of our Facebook Contact Manager app on production on release, and the test version locally. So that wraps up this video. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.